No one saw this coming?
This is a great question. I asked Sound Transit the very same thing. They said they had a contractor do the work, and the contractor they are in multiple disputes with. They've been in mediation with over several issues with this Eastside starter line. What they told me is the contractor put in tiles that are meant for the indoors on the outdoors.
Okay.
Shut the front door.
They're too slippery.
No.
So people will slip on them. And they also can't withstand outdoor elements like the heat, which is why they broke. So it all has to be redone.
That seems like a 101 component of putting this project together, is knowing where the tiles are going to be, what they're going to be asked to do.
That is actually Sound Transit's argument to the contractor.
We're good at this.
And they say they want their money back. They want that $3 million that they're going to have to pay to redo this back from the contractor. And they say they're going to work to recoup that money. So this is good news for transit taxpayers. If you were worrying you were going to have to foot the bill for this, Sound Transit says, nope, we're going to work to get that money back. There are a couple avenues by which they can do so. But yes, another problem. You may remember the East Link, the entire East Link that was supposed to go from the Chinatown International District all the way to Redmond, has been plagued with many challenges. We don't like to use the word cursed, but plagued with challenges, shall we say. First, in 2020, there was a problem with the concrete in the Redmond garage. Then there was the concrete workers' strike in 2022. And then the very famous, we covered it extensively, plinth problem, as we call it. The plinths that were...
For those of us that don't retain information well, plinth?
Plinth is part of the concrete structure that holds the tracks above I-90 instead of below in Lake Washington. It keeps the thing sturdy.
Seems essential.
The plinths, yes, the plinths were bad. And they discovered that, which meant they had to rip up 4 miles of track and redo it.
Wow.
Voters approved this in 2008, the entire East Link. It's 2023, and we're not expected to get it until 2025. But that's why they wanted to open this starter line, because they said, hey, this will be ready. So we can open this a year early and give those 6,000 passengers that they're expecting some daily commutes between Bellevue and Redmond. But, yes, another problem.
And, you know, I'm a pretty optimistic person, but based on what you're saying, 2008 first approved, now we're at 2023, delayed. And there was a big article in the Seattle Times that's talking about these transportation projects, and they don't have enough companies bidding on them. So if there's not even a lot of competition out there to take on these projects, you know what happens when you don't have a lot of competition? I mean, it can really be hard to manage the quality control.
You take the only contractor offering their services, and you pay whatever they're asking you to pay.
Right.
Because
it drives up the cost.
The competitive bidding isn't there to drive down the cost.
Well, if you have a project that's taking over 15 years, you have to expect that costs are going to balloon from
that's understandable.
Estimates.
Absolutely understandable.
We are not in 2008 world anymore. That feels like a lifetime ago. And so obviously costs and things have changed, and contractors, that's a tough thing to ask people to, or a company to sign on for a 15-year project.
Right. And so, you know, all these bids are coming in way over than what was budgeted. And I don't know about you all, but just having in my own, you know, network, people who own businesses where you have to bid on things, and you have inflation, you have a shortage of people in the trades, you have all these things putting pressure that sometimes you don't make the money you think you're going to make, or you actually come out at a loss.
Right.
So then it becomes understandable why. And if you look at this article from the Times, it really talks about how what was one of the examples, one of the bids. I don't know if our producer is able to pull that up. But basically millions of dollars over what's budgeted.
The electrification of the ferries is a perfect example of a bid that is way over what they expected it to be. And they're moving forward with that project, but it's going to cost a lot more than one would have thought. And a question that I have, and one that I would probably throw out to the listeners, is when Eastlink is finished, will you ride it? With all the challenges it's faced, will you be one of the first to ride?
Well, it's interesting
over I-90 or over Lake Washington.
Over Lake Washington. So we live in a city that is a national leader, if not an international leader, in tech, in retail with Amazon, in medical research. Our region is growing. It's one of the fast-growing cities in America again. So people are coming. Whether the folks that are already on the east side are going to use this or not, this kind of infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, is going to have to happen Whether it's 5 years, 8 years, 10 years in the making, it's going to be necessary and going to be there in place when the city continues to grow as it will.
There's no question it's needed. You can ask any of our transportation reporters, Mickey Gomez or Chris Sullivan or Nate Connors, and they will tell you the I-90 bridge, with cars and with the way this city is growing and the way the Eastside is growing, it's not sustainable to have cars on I-90.
It's the necessary evil of that as we move forward in the future. Couple that with a national infrastructure boom. The Biden administration's infrastructure bill was, 30 years behind in the necessity of doing these upgrades? So nationally, contractors and construction bids people are coming from outside other markets to do major city projects. It's a national need for construction and contractors.
And transit riders are frustrated, and rightfully so, because it has been years and years without this being completed. They want to see it completed. They want to use transit, and that is such a great thing about Washington is people want to be able to use the transit, but it needs to get finished.
It does.
And
so what's the solution? I'm curious, Spike, what your thoughts are on this. I mean, here in this article, it talks about as recently as 2021, the state averaged 6 bids per project. 6 bids. And now in 2023, they have 2.5. I don't know how you get a half bid. But,
well, if you 5 projects.
Yeah. But 2.5. So I guess my point is, do we start being part of like developing the pipeline of people who have the capacity or companies that have the capacity to take on these large scale projects? Or to your point, do you bring in people from other cities?
Yeah, I think a combination of all the above. Invest in new local businesses. Start up. Washington's the number 2 state in America for new business development. Some of these have to be tile setters at the east side, the terminal. I mean, and when we got all this going on between cost increases and delays in construction, the last thing we need is somebody to know whether inside tiles or outside tiles are going to be necessary to get this done.
And then there's that.
I do have some good news. They are using a different contractor, which is great.
Yes, good.
Which is great.
Yeah.
And this is a fixable problem.
Absolutely.
This is not a problem that is going to add years onto the project. Sound Transit says we can fix it. We think we can fix it in time, and we are still optimistic that people will be able to ride from Redmond to Bellevue next spring, which is something people have been waiting for years. So,
and Angela, you're an optimist. I am too. I'm glad it happened now. I'm glad this didn't happen. We didn't get a hot summer.
That people didn't slip and trip onto an oncoming train.
And you've got people building this into their daily commute life, and it's closed down for a year to do this project.
Pam on the text line asked a really good question, because contractors usually have insurance to make the repair.
They have to be bonded and insured, yeah.
So why would this have to cost the taxpayers?
That's a great question. It is she's actually right. The tiles are under warranty, according to Sound Transit. So the taxpayers shouldn't have to pay, but getting money from those companies, especially when they're in disputes like that, is very difficult and can often take years. And there's a lot of legal complications with that. There are ways, but it's not going to happen immediately. And if we want to see this line open on time, unfortunately, we may have to foot the front end of that cost.
That's such a great point. Like, sometimes you have the right to sue or get money, and the reality of actually getting it is another story.
Disputes and mediations. Court, man, it's the worst.
Kate Stone, well done. Thank you so very much.